Okay, let's begin. Welcome to the Raleigh Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, March 12th at 6 PM at Town Hall on Main Street, Raleigh, Mass. First order of business, I'll call the meeting to order. We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have quite a few appointments tonight. The first appointment is at, well, we're a little late, but we will get right to our first appointment with Highway Surveyor Patrick Snow to discuss the fiscal year 19 highway, tree, and land maintenance budgets and snow and ice removal. Patrick?
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
So in regards, I'll start right off with the highway department's budget. I level funded in accordance with the guidelines that I received for the expense line. It will remain $114,926. For the wages, we followed the union contract, and that has been raised to $210,409.18, as well as the highway surveyor salary was the simple COLA raise and the 1 1/4 increase like every other person in town got. I don't know if you gentlemen have any other specific questions in regard to the highway expense line or the highway wages.
And your expenses are all level funded.
Yes.
Let me just interrupt you for a second that we are being audio and video recorded. And will be replayed on Raleigh Community Media. Okay, go ahead, Pat.
So if everybody's okay with that one, we'll move on to the snow and ice.
Mm-hmm.
Snow and ice, I increased it to another $20,000, which is a 12% increase from $165,000 FY18 to $185,000 FY19. As of right now, we are going to be going into deficit spending after this last storm. So, as of my last round of bills that I put in, we had spent $162,953.75 of the $165,000 we appropriated this year. So we were doing real well up until these last couple storms. The contractors have gone down quite a bit this year compared to last year. Really, like I've said in the past, it all has to do with the storms you're getting. The storms have been so fast. I mean, I've seen storms where, we're talking 12-hour storms are really the longest ones we've had so far this year, so it's really saved us some money. We've still used quite a bit of material. I know last year we used about 1,378 tons of salt. This year we're about 1,263 tons of salt. So we're right there for an average winter, which in my opinion for what we've had for snowfall the last couple of years. The price of salt went down from last year to this year. Last year it was $56.56 a ton. This year it's $50.25 a ton. But that all kind of comes along with what you've had for years in the past, because I know it was higher for what would have been FY16 for us. I believe it was higher than 56. I think it was like almost $60 a ton for us in FY16 following that large winter we had FY15. So, in regards to that, I mean, if anybody has any more specific questions for snow and ice, I'll try to answer them the best that I can.
No, we asked for the extra 20,000 each year. We tried to increase the snow.
Yep.
Trying to get up to around 200,000 if we
Yeah,
can.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, no, I
And
think
then
we'll
we'll see
close
what
it out. I
happens.
think that'll really kind of, for average winters, we'll be able to keep within our budget.
But you gotta account for increased salt and
Wages,
those kind
all
of
that
things, and
stuff,
wages
yeah.
keep
It's hard to gauge the salt because the salt market changes all the time.
Yeah.
But with the wages and things along that line, gas and fuel, that can change and that very well as well.
That's fine. Okay.
That takes care of. Next I have the tree budget. So
Okay.
the warden salary was increased in accordance with the guidelines, the 2 1/4 for the 1 1/4 increase in the 1% COLA. And I increased the budget quite a bit for tree work. After the gypsy moth infestation and the drought we had, we got a lot of dead trees along the rights of way, and I know we put in a warrant, Dave put in a warrant article for money for trees, but after these storms and everything, I really feel like we need to increase this budget, so that way, I know it's kind of sticker shock going from $9,000 to now, what I put in for was $20,000, which I feel is a good start for us to see where that takes us in a
Yeah, I
year.
think we've been neglecting anyway overall, and then with the deforestation we've gone through, we wanna put an article in for 50,000 and work in conjunction with the light department, because you're gonna have a lot of police detail costs when we do run 33 and a lot of these other roads, so we can, Dan Foldy did say that he's gonna work with us, and if we can combine his funds along with what we have, we'll see how far we get.
Yeah,
It's not gonna do everything, but at least we'll make a big dent on it, cause there's an awful
Yeah.
lot of dead oak trees.
Yes.
Yeah.
In particular,
That's-
that are overhanging these roads. And
There are a lot along the roads that
yeah,
have come
we
down.
don't
Yes.
want, those falling through people's windshields
No.
for sure, so.
Are there any other questions in regards to the
No.
tree? Last but not least, the town land maintenance, which in the past was used for, because we contracted mowing in the past for mowing the town commons,
Right.
which now we do ourselves. We purchased a mower and have done. It still goes towards mowing the old landfill, which we have to mow. We have hire a contractor for that. It goes towards mowing the library as well. The only reason I know it's gone down the amount of money we've spent in that, we had a massive drought, so we didn't have to mow the dump twice a year one year. And, the mowing cost just didn't go up that much. I kinda like keeping it at that just in case we run into any issues with the town land maintenance as well as the Dodge Reservation property, cause we can use the money for that as well if we have any issues out there.
Not a problem, I don't think.
You know?
That's
it.
everything I have for
All
you.
you got?
That's all I got.
Thanks, Pat. Motion?
I'll give you a motion to accept the highway, tree, land maintenance budgets along with snow and ice removal.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Okay, we have a 6:15 appointment with Brianne Walsh, on Council on Aging Director, to discuss fiscal year 19 Council on Aging budget.
Good evening. How is
Good evening,
everyone today?
Brianne.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
How you doing, Mary?
Good. You?
I'm very good, thanks.
Oh, thank you.
You have a version A and,
Glad to hear it.
And a version B, yes, there are two versions of the COA budget before you today,
okay.
as well as a budgetary issues form.
Mr. Chairman, Brianne and I spoke about how we would present this budget. Her board is looking to increase the outreach coordinators' hours by 6 a week to bring it to a total of 13 hours. And even though the requirements and the guidelines were to level fund, we did have that issues and options form this year that would address any operational budget
Right.
issues as opposed to any capital or requests. So I advised Bryn to show a budget that met with the guidelines with no increase in that position in that department, and then a version that did show that increase so that you could look and see, what you thought that you could afford for the next
So
upcoming
you're going
year.
from 7 hours to 13.
I think she will
Yes.
discuss the caseload, and the amount of hours that they need there and the complexities of some of the things that the outreach coordinator does in terms of assisting with various social issues, health insurance and things like that.
It's something that currently right now, it's 7 hours, it's something that doesn't really get a chance to really give us what we need. Right now, having that extra 6 hours a week will allow us to have the outreach coordinator to be in the office an extra day a week is essentially what it comes down to. So having someone staffed in that position will make it so that we can bridge the gap between the beginning of the week and the end of the week through the weekend and on towards, prevailing weeks as the year goes on. It makes it really difficult sometimes to have adequate follow-up because there's just simply not enough time in the week to be able to make sure that that's done. And it also allows for an additional amount of home visits. So the outreach coordinator will be able to focus on seeing people in the home as well as seeing people in the office. In the office, we do things like SNAP benefits and health insurance assistance and referrals to assisted living and rehabilitation centers and things like that. But a large part of the outreach work is done in the community, in people's homes and seeing people at their apartments and places of dwelling. So we're really looking to try and increase the amount of people that we see on a weekly basis, not just in the office, but also out in the community. And the best way to do that at this point in time is to give some more hours to the position each and every week. So I feel like the amount of people that the outreach coordinator would be able to touch on would be, increased, and it would be that much better for the community. As you all know, we try to let people age in place for as long as we can by offering our services to the community. And by having that additional time, we'll hopefully be able to allow people to do that. And if they're not, then we can give them those benefits of our advice and time through the outreach coordinator's, assistance.
It's about a $6,000 increase also.
Yes, a little less than 6,000.
Any questions?
Any comments?
I'll make a motion to approve version B with the outreach coordinator's increase in hours.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve version B of the budget request for the Council on Aging for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you
you
so
very
much.
much.
As always, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Good luck with the storm.
Thank you. We appreciate your support as always.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yep, take care now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, can we take the full,
What?
The board.
the board?
The clipboard.
Oh my God, it's taking your thing. I'm so excited.
We lost the pen.
Up.
Is the chief out there?
He's coming in now with him, just
Oh.
got his car,
Thank you.
anytime.
You want to do the update on the police fire?
Yeah, you can if you want. Not much, too much going on there, but.
Okay, old business number one, update on the fire station, police station addition project in Eris Park access during construction. A fence was installed in the back area of the site. We continue to remind the public that Kids Kingdom will be closed for the next approximately 4 weeks until the new roadway is built. If the public needs to go to the police station, please use the new entryway. The weather and recent power outages are slowing down the progress.
Yeah, just to add, Mr. Chairman, we are really advising the people if they go into the police station to be careful, because it's, especially with all the snow and ice we're having, making it even worse. So we've done the best we can. We've added some stuff to the road, the new road going into the police station. And once we get, Pat plows it, but obviously it's not, it's gravelly, not paved, so people going into the police station should use care and caution, and once the storm goes by, we'll get some better signage and stuff up there, but right now it's, moving along, but the snow and cold keeps delaying us, so it'll probably show up in the other end, but it's coming along, and, it's looking good so far.
Okay. Working on an approximate time. We have a 6:30 appointment with the fire chief to talk about the fiscal year 19 budget.
Ready?
Ready?
We'll do it the emergency management first, because it'll take probably the least amount of time. I'm asking for. I'm asking for a $431 increase in my expenses from $1,919 to $2,350. Last year I had to get a faster router for the emergency management and fire department software, and it's increased the monthly internet fee from what I was paying $95 a month before. Now it's up over $130. So to make ends meet, I need an additional $431 to pay for that service. Telephone is still the same, $180, and the stipend for the emergency management director stays at $4,000.
Okay. Questions? No?
You want a motion for that?
We'll do
Did you know those numbers again, Chief, on your expenses?
Yes.
I'll give you a motion, Mr. Chairman.
The office supplies and,
What is the total?
the total,
Yeah.
when it goes from 2,099 to 2,530.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry.
We're a $431
Right.
increase.
Right, thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Second. No.
Second. By Mr. Pierce. To approve the emergency management budget for the fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, on to the fire department budget. I have an increase of, for wages of $11,632. That's the 2.25%. For call firefighters, my wage, and the fire captains. On my expenses, what I've done is I requested an additional $2,310, and that's to cover March, April, May, and June of next year with the anticipated opening of the new station. There's going to be a transition, and my utility costs will probably not cover the two buildings until we kind of figure out what our actual energy costs are going to be in the future, because I have no way of judging. What I did do is I took the Byfield fire station, being that's fairly new. They have a similar type of radiant heat in their floor, and I use what they use for their energy costs for the course of the year to base my numbers of $2,310, which I think should cover us, because we're getting into the warmer weather. There won't be a high demand on gas and stuff like that, and the electric bill should still be somewhat stable before the summer months come. Hopefully, I'll have some numbers in to. So for the following year, I still really don't know what our actual energy costs are going to be. It's going to be we'll need a full year to really judge what our actual costs are. I'm going to be guessing, but I think the $2,310 will be enough for those 4 months. And I imagine the March, we probably won't be in it until towards the end of the month, with the way that the weather's going right now. So it would March probably won't be as much of a factor as I'm anticipating. The rest of it, I've moved some stuff around to cover the shortfalls on hose testing. I took it out of some places where I didn't really use that much this year. But it's a level funded budget in the end, except for the $2,310 increase for the utility costs.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to excuse myself from the wage increase calculation on Form 2.
Okay.
One of the things we discussed when we were here last year with the chief, we asked him, every year he's come in looking for 2 extra firefighters, and we kept putting them off, so this year, I talked with Debbie, and we met with the chief, and we're requesting 2 additional full-time firefighters. The idea being that we know the school budget's high. When I went before the school committee a couple of weeks back, I mentioned the fact that one of the things we were may have to forego was the addition of 2 additional firefighters because of the size of the school budget. However, the chief, in my discussions with him, all 3 of the chief and the 2 captains are, give or take, 60 years old. They're gonna be retiring, could well retire next year or 2. We really need to bring some younger people on. Oftentimes, the chief states that when they have calls, they have insufficient call personnel to respond. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 people, and that includes the chief. He responds to an awful lot of the after-hours calls. So the town has grown enough and it's big enough, I need to bite the bullet and add the 2 additional firefighters. And I think this is the time to do it. Triton's budget's not gonna get any better next year. I mean, we're already anticipating and looking at Triton's budget, they're gonna have $1 million in salary increases again next year before they do anything else. So there is no good time to do this. And in my discussions with the town administrator and with the chief, I'm gonna recommend that we hire the 2 firefighters on this year's budget, and we'll work our way through whatever problems we have.
For fiscal 19.
Fiscal 19, and that's reflected in firefighter, the budget 2, budget
Budget
B.
2,
If you look at your package, there's a budget B, and that reflects the, going on firefighter wages from $178,517 to $328,280. I mean, last year we were talking about, if we were gonna increase the firefighters, I had mentioned to the chief that, well, we try to have an override for 2.5 to get the additional firefighters. But this year it appears as though we're gonna have an override for the school anyway. So let's put the firefighters in the regular budget. If in fact, the override doesn't pass, or we run into some budget problems, then we'll come back in the fall and, take a second look at, maybe we won't hire them, but at this point, I think we need to build that into the budget for the long term. And obviously, with the age of the firefighters now, we're running into a point where every year we wait to do this is 1 more year that we're gonna run into a problem with replacements. So that's my recommendation.
If I agree with you, we just can't bring on 2 people 6 months before, retirements. I mean,
Yeah, I'd
there's
like
a
to
lot of
get 'em-
training.
Well,
that
get
has
them
to
up
be
to
done.
speed on everything, and so that they can hopefully become the future leaders of the department.
How long would it take for training?
Well, ultimately, in this particular case, we have some people that are on the call force that have got the credentials that we're looking for, which is firefighter 1-2 certification and EMT. What that would do is, if they were the successful candidates, I
Right.
mean, we're gonna have to go out to advertise for it, is that they could pretty much start working without going to the full-time firefighter academy. The end, the certification's the same. It's just that with the full-time academy, they do a little bit more confined space rescue and other stuff that the call program doesn't have. But we don't do confined space to begin with. We'd have to call the Essex County team in. We don't have the capabilities. So with these group, if we have successful candidates that are certified, they can hit the ground running. In the future, I would say that we would need to start looking at sending people to the full-time academy and start working our way towards a more full-time department at that point. But we do have qualified people within. We probably get more than enough qualified people from outside. So the training that would need to be done is get them up to speed with the town of Raleigh and, the idiosyncrasies of all the alarms in town and locations and what to look for and what stuff you need to be worried about. So it could be, take a year to get them up to speed where they can comfortably make the decisions that will be needed to be made for the future.
Yeah, it's something that the chief has requested, I don't know, the last I'm gonna say 4 years, I might be wrong on the number, but.
4 or 5
it's
have
been
really
quite a-
been hitting it because
Every year we've been looking at this.
Every day I have more aches and pains. I was on my stomach the other day at a brush fire, and I'm going, oh, I'm too old for this.
Easy to get down, hard to get up.
Yeah. Yes, no, not even easy to get down anymore. It's very painful. I'm going, oh my Lord. But the time is the longer we put it off, the harder it's going to be, and the shorter the time period to get them up to speed. And hopefully, when I leave, I leave the place in a better position than when I found it. And getting 2 more people on would help put that goal in perspective. I mean, we got a new station and all that, so I'm comfortable with whoever takes over for me is going to have something to build on. That's it for the budget. Any other questions? If you want a little more particulars on the dollar amounts, we've got a figure with the overtime and how much they'd be paid an hour and stuff.
Basically, just the increase is the 178, 517 to 328, that's all in the salary.
It's in the salary, yeah.
You have we talked about this the other day, but just for the edification of the board, you'll have equipment and stuff like that.
Right. We have to issue them gear, but if it's from internal, they already got their gear. They'll have a uniform allowance, which would be the same as Mark, Ronnie, and myself. Would be $1,000 a year, so that would be a little bit, which I should be able to absorb in my budget. I'm moving some things around a little bit, but we can. The increase on expenses would be for their clothing allowance.
Plus, as part of the capital budget, we're proposing that we buy, how many more suits are we talking about?
About 4 or 5 more suits, and then we have a bunch of helmets and boots that are getting to their 10-year anniversary, and they have to be retired. So between what I got left over, this year I'm going to be ordering some new gear for some people, but I have a bunch of boots that aren't cheap, and helmets are getting more and more expensive that are up for their. So we'll chew it up pretty good, but we'll be in a good spot where everybody will have good gear.
We want to protect the department. Yep.
How big is the force right now?
Right now, it's 25 of us, counting Mark, Ronnie, and myself. So there's 22 call guys and 3 of us. And we're going to be losing our call captain in May. He's retiring. He's hitting 65, so we'll be down 1 in May.
Any other questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve
Budget number.
fire budget B with which includes the 2 additional firefighters for,
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve firefighter budget 2 to hire 2 additional full-time fire personnel for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
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 I recuse myself.
Do you want to go over anything on the capital, or?
no, we'll do that another time.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
I'd like to just talk about the, where are we on the truck situation? Can you give me a?
Apparatus? Sure. We have one truck that's going to be 31 years old actually next month.
That's the Han.
That's the Han. That doesn't meet the current safety standards, doesn't meet the current performance standards that the rest of the fleet meets. The pump is no longer made, so if something goes wrong with it, it's a mad dash to find parts for it. Last year it failed its pump test, and talking to my pump specialist, it's most likely because of a radiator. Now, the engine and radiator on engine 4 are what they call mid-engine, meaning it's in the middle of the chassis. So to get the radiator out, they basically have to take where the riding seats are in the back of the truck out, and there's a cover that sits on the roof of the truck that has to come off, and they got to disconnect a lot of stuff inside and pull it straight up through.
Wow.
Very costly endeavor on labor. We had it done once before, about 15 years ago. Approximate cost right now is $8,000 to do that. I have the tires that we mentioned a couple of years ago were, because they sit a lot, stationary, it's not good for their tires. And the recommendation is the tires, or after they're 7 years old, they get taken off. Normally, it wouldn't be such a big problem. We get the tires on a state bid and all that stuff, and not a problem. Unfortunately, they no longer make that size tire anymore. So I have to buy not only 6 new tires for it, but 6 new rims, which will cost about $9,000 for the tires and the rims. So now you're up to $17,000 for a truck that I found on a used truck site, almost identical to it, right down to the color scheme, is $8,000. That's what it's worth.
It's an antique, really.
It's an antique.
Yeah.
It belongs with antique plates on it. Yes. It's served the town well. It served us well. As you know, when I first got here, it was the second truck. It was the first truck on many occasions when the Mack wasn't in working well. Unfortunately, like everything else, it gets old and it's time to go. The next oldest truck is engine 3, which was bought in 2002,
Yeah.
and that will be 16 years old in November. And that was the first truck that the town bought. So that one had some rust issues last year that we had to get money for.
Yeah.
It's working well. Engine 1 was in for its annual maintenance last 2 major storms, so the truck ran flawlessly for us. But like everything else, you know, when it starts getting to that age, it's time to go. So that would be the next one that would be
But
replaced.
we're talking safety issues too, with it doesn't have, it's not up to snuff as the new trucks are.
Yeah, I mean, the safety things have changed since engine 3 was built, and then engine 1 is a 2009, that will be 9 years old this June, hard to believe, and then the latter is going to be 3 years old in July.
Oh,
And the ladder will
Wow.
be paid off
wow.
2 years.
2 more years.
2 more years. So we really have to think really in,
Every year it's, you know,
Yeah.
and, you know, I do need 3, I mean, we run primarily 2 engines.
right,
But our fire flow for the town for ISO rating is over 3,100 gallons a minute. So if engine 4 should die, I can't do it with 2 1,500 GPM pumps. Something happens to engine 1 or engine 3, I need the reserve truck
Right.
to make up the difference. So we have a lot of commercial property in town. We have a lot of big houses in town. And we do have some houses that aren't on hydrants, and all 3 trucks will play a role in getting water to put the fire out. So, believe it or not, there are a couple areas in town that aren't hydranted. And it's something that we need to look at, and I understand every year I put in for it, and I know I get turned down, but every year it's 1 year older, and
Yep.
it's well past, it's all, you know, it's into the almost middle age. Most of the guys that are learning how to drive the truck right now are 10 years younger than the truck is. Which reminds me of when I was in the Army and all the stuff we were driving was 20 years older than we were. So, I mean,
Wow.
if you want to look at it in a perspective, the truck is older than most of the people now that are learning or starting to use it.
Wow. Wow.
Well, when I talked about it with the chief, I kinda intimated that we were hoping to get that truck through until the ladder truck's paid off. So we're only having an override for 1 truck at a time.
Yeah,
And
ideally, that's
if we
what
can
you
get it 2 years, I mean, even if we have to do some repairs on it, I guess, or whatever, it's
Yeah,
at this point, to expect taxpayers to put in another override is, you know, a little bit over the top in terms of what our current budget situation is, so
We'll
Try to
make
stretch
it, stretch it out as long as we can, but next year I'll bring it up again, just so we keep it into the forefront of
But
everybody's
we've always
mind.
talked about, you know, replacing the truck when it comes up to,
Right,
you know,
Yeah.
10 years. You know, so, you know, the latter will be paid off in two.
two, and we'll be hopefully, replacing it, but
An engine, we bought, what, the second engine we
the
bought?
second engine is, it will be 16 years old, so it's got 9 years left on its
Right,
20, to hit the 25-year mark, which ideally is where we want to be, is when the truck is 25 years old, we retire it. And then that, if we can keep on every 5 years, we'll be able to do that, and then the fleet will be in really good shape.
Yeah, if we can stretch this one, then we'll be get into a regular rotation.
Right, and that's the
Paying
goal
for
that
one
we
truck at a
started
time.
back in 2000.
Yeah.
Bob might have remembered it a little bit.
Yeah.
But we had a analysis of the fleet done, and that's the goal that we were striving for, is every 5 years,
Right.
replacing one.
Right.
If
I
everything works
remember
out
the
right,
5-year plan.
we'll achieve it. Took us a little time to get to it, but we did it, and then we'll have a good fleet.
I think it's critical. I mean, this year we've replaced the new fire engine, new fire station finally. We can hire 2 firefighters in the next budget, and then the next big thing will be replacing that fire engine. I think we've come a long way in the last few years in terms
Yes,
of upgrading the fire department to somewhat near where it should be, so. Everything costs money.
Everything costs money.
and every
for
year
sure.
it costs more.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
thanks, chief.
Thanks for coming in. Oh, by the way, I do want to pass along, I got a call from Brad Hill, and we want to pass along a thanks to your wife for volunteering to help out at the emergency
She actually
shelter on
She
Saturday.
had fun.
And
and
it was good. We had, the 5 of us work together, and
Yeah.
we had a good time
She
doing
had a
that.
good time, and she was willing to do it again, so.
Joe, you might wanna just tell the public, if they're watching, what we actually did the other day.
Yeah,
in
we,
terms of the storm.
on Saturday afternoon, we were at a meeting, and the Mass Emergency Management Team declared Thursday,
Yes.
declared Ipswich the emergency
Regional
shelter for the area. And so they invited, among other towns, the people from Raleigh to go over. And so the chief's wife and Mr. Peterson and his wife Joan and my wife and I, we went over to the Ipswich Town Hall, which serves as the Council on Aging office in the basement. And we helped out, and we had a good time. As well as, you know, they came in with 25 pizzas at 8 o'clock and at night, and we had food for the elderly, and they had the Red Cross brought in blankets and cots, and it was well served.
Yep.
And we saw Representative Hill was there, and his wife, and State Senator Bruce Tarr. They were both there helping out. So it was the whole community helping one another. It was a community effort
Might be
by the
worthwhile-
CERT team.
Might be worthwhile, Mr. Chairman, if we could send a letter to the Ipswich Board of Selectmen, I guess. I'm not sure, or the CC to the Council on Aging, and just thank them for their hospitality for the Raleigh residents, and, but it really worked out well. I was surprised how well they had that whole
Right.
operation running.
They
They have a lot of volunteers who, knew what they were doing. I mean, I guess they've done it, their volunteer emergency group is, trained, and they know what they're doing. They all had
Oh, 5
vests
of them,
and.
isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them, they really ran.
they
very-
have a CERT team.
Yeah.
The Community Emergency Response Team, and they did a great job. It was,
But if
you
we
know,
could send
very,
them a
very
letter,
well.
that would be great. Of
I
thanks
think
to
that
the
would
town
be
of Ipswich
appropriate.
And I think after this
hosting us.
budget season's over, we really need to sit down and think about what we wanna do for the town in the future.
Well, once we get the new school, there's gonna be a generator for the new school.
Yeah, but there's
And
other
then-
things that we need to discuss about it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now
no,
is not
no,
the
for
time to
sure,
do
but I
it.
Yeah.
mean, it's just, yeah, in the future, it's looking better than what it is now.
Yes.
We've talked about it for years, and
Um,
really haven't had the facilities, but,
Debbie and I had a conversation on it, and there's some funding opportunities that may be available to us to purchase emergency generators for all the town buildings that really
Oh,
need
good.
it. So we'll talk about it later, because it's gonna take a lot of work and thought and to do it, something
Right.
that we can't do in 3 weeks.
I
Yep.
noticed a lot of people were following the storm on Facebook, and the police department, the fire, and all the notifications that were given
Yeah,
out.
Dave Cedric got real good with putting stuff out, so
Yes.
I think he's gonna be our public information.
And people, people didn't know, but they went to Facebook and they were
Yeah.
able to follow what was
Yes,
going on.
they were.
Yeah, we got some lessons learned on it, but he got real good at putting the message out, so.
And Brad Hill, he was
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, he was everywhere during that storm.
Yes, I don't know, him and Bruce Tarr, I don't know how they
Yeah.
got around as much as they did.
Yep.
So tomorrow's
Okay.
round 3, and the state did shut down state offices, so.
All right, thank you.
Have a
Thanks
great day.
again,
Thanks,
Chief.
Chief.
Okay, we have a 7 o'clock appointment, Attorney Jill Mann and Robert Nixon to discuss Meadows Lane town-owned parcel. Attorney Jill Mann is asking the board to continue the discussion until next week. Attorney Mann says that Mr. Nixon is reaching out to the neighbors.
Rob, could you open that door?
You want the letter
Thank you.
read into the record?
We do, in your packet, you have the email from Attorney Mann, but you also have the letter from the Conservation Commission, if the board wants to read that, because it does apply to two of the parcels, but they're not the parcels that Mr. Nixon, was interested in.
I see
If the board
the,
is interested in getting any feedback from the planning board on that, but, so there, if you wanna read that one into the record.
okay, I see the one from Jill Mann.
Okay, you should have
I
this.
don't have the letter. Oh, I do. Sorry.
No, no, and, there's, it's been highlighted, the section that the Conservation Commission.
Okay, let me, from Jill Mann to Monday, March 12th, 2018, to Debbie Egan, and the subject was Meadow Lane's request to continue to March 19th. Robert Nixon. Good morning, Miss Egan. I wanted to let you know that my client, Rob Nixon, is trying to work with neighbors on Meadows Lane. While he did reach out and meet with one of the neighbors, he has not reached a consensus with them. Accordingly, I would like to ask the board to continue our discussion, excuse me, until next week so that my client is able to determine whether or not he will be able to secure the cooperation of the neighbors. Please let me know if the board will be meeting next week and if it would be acceptable to move the discussion regarding the town-owned parcel to that meeting. And the letter is dated March 12th, 2018. Mr. Joseph Ferry, Chairman, Board of Selectmen, 139 Main Street, Raleigh, Mass. Subject, Nixon request concerning Meadows Lane in town-owned parcels V, W, X, Y, and Z. Dear Honorable Chairman Perry, the Conservation Commission at their public meeting on March 6th, 2018 discussed the current status of the above-listed general municipal parcels identified as V, W, X, Y, and Z in the Meadows at Stony Brook definitive subdivision. The recently located planning board approval of the definitive plan with conditions dated October 1st, 1992, and recorded definitive plans, the Meadows at Stony Brook, dated revised September 28th, 1992, were reviewed for the intended disposition of the parcels. The listed conditions within the subdivision approval are silent as to the specific disposition of the V, W, X, Y, and Z parcels. The definitive plan in note number T states parcels V, W, X, Y, and Z shall be deeded to the town of Raleigh as open space at the time of filing the street acceptance plans with the Registry of Deeds. These parcels were deeded to the town on April 23rd, 1996, and no mention of open space on natural resource protection is stated on the recorded deed. There isn't any record of subsequent action that confers such protection. The commission respectfully requests that the Board of Selectmen supports the commission's desire to transfer of the parcels identified as W and X to the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. Those parcels have been evaluated and by their characteristics are deemed appropriate for designation as protection for their natural resources in open space value. The commission deemed the other parcels, V, Y, and Z, which are not contiguous and separated by Meadow Lane Public Way, as having minimal value to contribute to the protection of natural resources or open space values, as stated in the Open Space and Recreation Plan update. Sincerely yours, on behalf of the Conservation Commission, Brent Bazelak, Conservation Agent. So we can put that on the March 19th
Put it
agenda.
on for the next meeting agenda if the chairman would like. And also, I didn't know if, I know that Mr. Nixon looking at the other parcels, but would that be something you'd want the planning board to make a recommendation on? Should they want to pursue that?
Are they're interested in all five, or they're just
No, they're
interested?
interested in, the ones that are across the street from the two that Brent just referenced.
Oh, right. We would like a
Or
recommendation.
have them look at it. I don't know, because I think if they approve that roadway, maybe they have some idea about.
And they did the planning board at that time did designate the parcels as open space, all 5 of the parcels.
5.
So it would seem appropriate to me to ask for the planning board determination.
Okay. So-
Would that be something that the selectmen would like us to, would like to take a vote on and ask for a recommendation now, or wait until next week?
Well, we probably ought to recommend, if we wanna do it now, because the Nixons are obviously, they're looking to, I don't know if it can get done in time for the Springtown meeting, if in fact,
Would we need an appraisal,
an appraisal,
and,
and a bunch of different things to be done.
dispose of public property?
But, I think that, why don't we refer this to the planning board, at least for those 3 parcels?
Ask them for a comment, or,
Yeah, if they have
Well,
any
yeah,
comment,
I don't think they need to comment on the other 2.
no, I don't
No.
think so either, I think
The
just
2 on the
V,
other side of the road.
Z, and Y,
Right.
as to what, any comments they might wanna make on it. As a comment, as a courtesy, anyway.
So I'll second that motion if that's a motion.
is that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Motion's been made, seconded by Selectman Pierce. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. We'll have,
Just one thing, Joe, Mr. Chairman, do we wanna wait and have the Nixons come in after we receive the comment? I don't know how soon the planning board can,
I know they have a busy agenda, there's a lot of things they're working on for
Yeah,
town
well-
meeting, I mean, that's almost every board now, anything they're working on is something for town meeting.
so I don't know if we're gonna wait for those comments to come back, it may not, I don't wanna see the
may not be
Nixons.
ready for the 19th.
Yeah, the Nixons may not be ready for us to make any kind of a recommendation to Nixons until maybe a couple of weeks, or I don't know. Maybe Kirk can, add an agenda item on the next meeting, just to at least discuss this, so we can move it along as
So
fast
would
as
you
possible.
like us then to tell Ms. Attorney Mann, not to come in next week for an update, or?
Well, I assume we're not gonna make a decision until after we hear from the planning board, right?
Right,
That would
that would be my
So
recommendation.
we're better off,
Well,
let them know we're referring we're getting an opinion from the planning board, and as soon as we know what their opinion is, we'll schedule them for,
Okay.
I just don't want them coming in here and, being here 5 minutes and gone.
Right, as soon as
They've
we,
already come in twice, I think, so,
as soon as we receive a reply from the planning board, and then we'll put them on the schedule, the next selectmen's meeting. We'll have public comment from 7:10 to 7:15.
and would it be appropriate to give them a copy of the of the Conservation Commission?
Yes, we.
Just so
Sure.
they're aware of where that stands.
Do we vote on that? Send him-
I'll make a motion to send them a
Did
letter.
you second it,
Yes.
right? And we voted on? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Get the planning board to review it.
for the planning board recommendation, not on requesting the tree man to come in.
Right.
Can I jump ahead to the 7:15?
No,
No?
Mr. Chairman, that's an.
That's posted for a joint meeting.
Still waiting for one number.
Can we go to budgets?
Yes, and we also have the old business.
You updated the Pine
I
Grove
can't
School.
go to a Pine Grove Open. I don't.
Okay.
I have to wait for the, yeah. I think that would be waiting on that. Okay, budgets.
Is that Brad out there?
Yes.
Yeah. Brad,
You want to do?
yeah, I mean, if we can do that, why don't we,
Okay.
you hear that's Brad, I think that's Brad Dorr out there, right?
Brad Miller? Yep. Well, whoever's with you.
We're trying to move things along if you're available.
Yeah. Just me, or do you want the whole squad?
The whole squad.
All right.
All right.
We don't wanna leave anybody out.
Please make sure you sign in on the clipboard. And when you speak, please introduce yourself. And I'll provide the introduction. Old business number 2, update on the Pine Grove School project. Discuss drafted agreement with Durham Whittier concerning FF&E, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and technology procurement. This item is not ready for tonight's meeting. Chairman Perry will update the board at an upcoming meeting when he has more information. Approve and award the following sub-trade contracts. W.T. Rich is here tonight. It has submitted a request to award for structural steel, shear stud connectors, and steel deck contract for a not to exceed amount of $750,000. See attached.
Mr. Perry, we're withdrawing that request for award on structural steel. We're gonna present it to the school board on Thursday night. Sorry, we made that decision early this morning. I thought it was, I was hoping we could withdraw that request.
Okay.
You mean presenting it to the building committee or to the?
Submitting it to the building committee. We have a recommended steel supplier. Right now, we want to present a letter of recommendation to the school board on Thursday night.
Okay. Are we going to do the sub-trades?
Yes.
Okay. The board needs to vote to award contracts for the following sub-trades. The low bidder for each category is highlighted in yellow in the attached spreadsheet from Pink and Company. Oh, I was looking for Eric, that's all.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. How's he doing?
I don't have an update right now.
Okay.
It's not feeling good.
Okay, James? Got it? Yeah, you gonna?
Do we want to start with LOR 6 and just go to
LOR 6 and Amendment 6?
Mr. Chairman, so they've condensed the low bidders right here. You can also see the table.
Oh,
Where
okay.
the spread is for
Yep.
each of the
Oh,
bid
okay, you have
amounts.
that
Yep.
attachment.
So that would be what the board would be voting on this evening, and
Right.
signing,
Okay.
authorizing you to sign on behalf of the town.
Okay.
You pick, guys.
Are you going to read the listing and give the low bidder, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we had 13, I'm sorry, my
Do
name's...
you want to do them, excuse me, for just individually, or award them?
I actually think it would be easy to vote on them individually, since they're individual contracts. I think
Okay.
it would be a more binding type vote if there was ever anything that came up in the future.
Just one question before you start. Do all these come in within what you budgeted, what was the budgeted for the project?
No.
No, they were fluctuate, we had some that came in low, some that came in high, but when you group them all together, it was,
Bottom line comes in within
Correct.
what the bottom line was?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Pretty much.
Not quite.
Okay.
It's just to be, so that you guys have this, right? So, right now, we're not going and doing the whole job.
Right.
Right, we're just doing the trade contractors. So, trade contractors on balance usually are about 50% of the job. So we have all of the non-trades, right, which we still have to get. We have some, right, that we've already done. For example, we did the demo sub.
Demo, kitchen equipment.
Right, and so, for example, on demo, we were $300,000 under. On this package, okay, of subs, that's part of LOR 6, if my math is right, we're actually over the budgeted amount by about just shy of $380,000, or about 3.2%. However, right, what we have, right, is we have all of the other trade contractors that we have to go through. These guys are in the process of de-scoping them, and so there's a little bit more work that has to be done there. And so I think, and you guys have looked at this, and John had mentioned this to me before, that right now we feel, I think, overall pretty good about where we stand. Okay. But with respect to your specific question, Dave, right, where we are tonight, okay, this is a little bit over budget.
Well, basically, we're in the ballpark. In other words, we're not $1 million over.
No. And there's two contractors just to raise your attention to before you vote on these things, right? And they're highlighted in here in italics. Okay, and the first one is your fire protection sub, right? Which is Rustic.
Right.
And there was actually a bidder that was lower by just under $40,000.
Northeast.
Okay, but they failed to include all of the required materials as part of their bid. They didn't include a non-collusion certificate and some other things, which statutorily, therefore, they have to be disqualified. So, unfortunately, right, because of their not getting it done, we lost $40,000. Similarly, okay, on the electric trade contractor, okay, we actually had a lower bidder than what we're currently seeking approval on tonight. But they also had kind of a shortcoming in their bid where they had one of their paragraph E filed subs, okay, not to get into too much detail, right, but one of the requirements there is that subcontractor needed to be DCAM certified. And at the time of the bid, that particular contractor certification had lapsed. And so, unfortunately, again, okay, we lost about, I don't know, what was like about $190,000 plus or minus.
Yeah.
So, we were actually closer on this particular group of trades, but because of just the way the bidding works and between how mass procurement works, we had to do that. So we're off by that. So that's kind of an overview of what's going on there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Masonry.
Okay, masonry. Masonry, we received 4 bids at the time of the bid opening, and Acronym Masonry was the low bidder, and at $375,000, and we recommend that the board approve Acronym Masonry as the sub-file
I'll
bidder.
give you a motion to approve Acronym Masonry for $375,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Second item, Capone Iron Corporation out of Raleigh, Massachusetts. Miscellaneous metals and ornamental iron. We had 7 bids come in, and Capone Iron was low, and we're recommending Capone Iron to be awarded to Pine Grove Elementary School miscellaneous metals and ornamental iron package at $201,963.
It's nice to see a local company get the bid.
Correct.
I recommend Capone Iron Corporation for $201,963.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those by Mr. Pierce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Waterproofing and damp proofing, we received 4 bids. Fallon Waterproofing Company was the low bid at $243,530, and WT Rich recommends that they be awarded the contract for Pine Grove School.
I recommend that we award the bid to Fallon Waterproofing Company for $243,530.
Motion was made and seconded to approve Fallen Waterproofing Company. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Roofing and flashing, we received 6 bids. Out of the 6 bids, Stanley Roofing Company was the low bid at $1,209,000. We recommend Stanley Roofing Company be awarded the contract for Pine Grove School.
I'll move to award the bid to Stanley Roofing Company for $1,209,000.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the contract to Stanley Roofing for the roofing and flashing. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
I have a question through the chair. So just kind of going back to Follen on waterproofing for a second.
Mhm.
One of the things here, okay, is that we have potential alternates, right, that the committee had looked at. And so we have actually 3 alternates that are in play. Okay, and because you're approving these each now with very specific amounts, I guess that I would request that you consider potentially an adjustment, based on a determination, and I think you want to go through the building committee just to get their recommendation on this. It doesn't alter, okay, any of the determination in terms of the subs, okay, that you're selecting here. In other words, if you add an alternate, it just doesn't change the ranking on any of the ones with respect to the alternates. So I'd like to be able to have you guys go ahead and approve these with the understanding that the building committee still needs an opportunity to be able to go and look at that alternate and make a decision as to whether they're going to go and pull the trigger on that. So, but because you're, kind of going and saying, we're going to select this contractor because they're low, and this is the actual dollar value, I'd like to have that, you have that reservation so that you can make a determination on that. But it doesn't change any of the subs that you're selecting.
What's the purpose for an alternate?
The alternate is there, it's kind of a little bit of a protection mechanism ultimately for you. So there are some things that you might have wanted to go and have in the contract, but you reserve those essentially depending upon, kind of where all of the numbers came in at the end of the day, which is what we're going through here now. So you had 3 alternates. You had one which was for a soffit, to go and take that soffit out, abate it, and put in a new soffit because there's some asbestos in there. You had another one that was looking at kind of a theater package that was in there. That was I believe your kind of, well, it was actually technically alternate number 3. And then the 4th one was just a change in the type of roofing membrane. And so all of those, nothing changes, again, as I said, with respect to the subs. But I think it would be worthwhile just to have the opportunity for the building committee to look at that, make your determination whether or not you want to select any of the alternates. You'd have to take the alternates in order if you did decide to take them. So you couldn't take 4 unless you went through the ones ahead of it. And then you can go ahead and decide based on where all of the bids come in whether or not you want to pull the trigger on those. Okay, so I just wanted to
So
make...
that'll be presented Thursday night.
Yeah, we can come back to that, but because you're kind of each one, right?
Yeah.
I figured just so that you have that for the
Well, I
record.
understand that.
So what we're doing now is kind of conditional? I mean,
Well, you're selecting the subcontractor, which is the most important thing for them, because the alternate doesn't change that dynamic. Okay, whether or not you select the alternate might add some cost, okay, to that particular contract value. I just want you to be aware. You may decide you don't want any alternates, and then nothing changes. But just so that, again, so that you're aware of it.
So if we, for waterproofing and damp proofing, we voted on Follen.
Yeah, at 243,530, if you actually exercised the alternates associated with them,
It would be a separate contract with the alternate.
it would be an add to their contract of 4860. So I'm just making you aware of that. So, somebody who's out there that says, well, I thought you said it was this much, but then when you actually go and sign it, it may be slightly higher.
Right,
Because
if
you-
we vote the
If
alternate.
if you vote the alternate. I just want you to be aware of that. But you may not, and it doesn't change the ranking of any of the trade
Yeah, we
contractors.
did the same thing with the police and
Yeah.
fire,
Yeah.
and the whole bid came in lower than expected, so we were able to add all three alternates in right at the beginning,
Right.
rather than going back and changing
Right.
them. Because in other words, you guys are gonna go through, get the final price, and depending on what money you may have available, then you'll start alternate one, alternate two.
Right.
So we'll come back and vote those, or the
So I
committee
just-
will vote, and then we'll.
So that was the case with the
Right.
waterproofer and damp-proofer. Similarly, on the roofing contractor, right, the Stanley Roofing, okay, who was the low bidder here, actually had, the alternate priced at 0, right? So if you actually decided that you're going to try and get to that alternate and you chose the other alternates, then you would get that alternate for 0 cost. But you can't take it unless you get the other ones ahead of it, okay?
Right.
Okay.
Oh, I see, okay, yep. Okay,
Next line item is glass and glazing. We received 2 bids out of a group of 6. And the low bidder for the glass and glazing was Kaploff Glass at $15,900. And we recommend Kaploff Glass be awarded the contract, as they also have the early release package for the storefront and window, which is why that's such a competitive number. So they're already on board with us for the storefront, curtain wall, and window portion of the project at $15,900 for glass and glazing.
I'll move we approve the Kapaloff glass and glazing for $15,900.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded to award the glass and glazing contract to Kaploff for the Pine Grove School. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next category is tiles, ceramic and porcelain tile. We received 4 bids. The low bidder was Joseph Cohen and Son in the amount of $193,251. W.T. Rich recommends award to Joseph Cohen and Sons for the Pine Grove School project.
I'll move that we approve Joseph Cohen and Son for $193,251.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Joseph Cohen and Son for the tile subcontractor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next category is acoustic tile. We received 4 bids. The low bid for acoustic tile was K&K Acoustic Ceilings at a cost of $310,400. W.T. Rich recommends award of the contract for acoustic ceilings in the amount of $310,400 to K&K Acoustic.
I'll move we approve the award the bid to K&K Acoustic Ceilings for the price of $310,400.
Second. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve K&K acoustic ceiling for the acoustical tile. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next category is resilient flooring. We received 4 bids for resilient flooring. The low bidder for the resilient flooring was Pavilion Floors at a cost of $667,163. We recommend the award for resilient flooring for the Pine Grove School be awarded to Pavilion Flooring.
I'll move we award the bid to Pavilion Floors for $667,163.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Pavilion Floors for resilient flooring. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next line item is painting. We received 4 bids for painting. Homa Contracting, Inc. was the low bid for the painting at $283,000. WT Rich recommends award to Homer Contracting, Inc. for the Pine Grove School at $283,000.
I move we award the bid to Homer Contracting, Inc. for $283,000.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Homer Inc. for the painting subcontractor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next item is fire suppression. As Brad pointed out earlier, this is one where it's not the actual low bid, but it's actual low qualified bid with the proper paperwork. And we received 4 bids for fire suppression. And Rustic Fire was the low qualified bid at $462,500, and we recommend the award go to Rustic Fire in the amount of $462,500.
I move we award the bid to Rustic Fire Protection, Inc. for $462,500.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve Rustic Fire Protection, Inc. for the fire protection subcontractor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next item is plumbing. Iamonte and Sons was the low bid out of 4 bidders at the amount of $1,048,000. WT Rich recommends award to Iamonte and Sons for the Pine Grove School in the amount of $1,048,000.
I move we award the bid to Iamonte and Sons, Inc. for $1,048,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Iamonte and Sons, Inc. for the plumbing subcontractor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next line item is HVAC. On HVAC, we received 2 bids. Iamonte and Sons was the low bid at $3,284,000. WT Rich recommends award to Iamonte and Sons in the amount of $3,284,000 for the Pine Grove School.
I move we award the bid to Iamonte and Sons, Inc. for $3,284,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Iamonte and Sons, Inc. for the HVAC subbid. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next line item is electrical. We received 3 bids. We talked about the issue at hand with the DCAM certification. As it turns out, Levanchi Electrical Company, Inc. is the low qualified bid for electrical for $3,530,000. WT Rich recommends award to Levanchi Electric for the Pine Grove School in the amount of $3,530,000.
I move that we award the bid to Levanchi Electric Company, Inc. for $3,530,000.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve Levanchi Electric Company, Inc. for the electrical subcontractor. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
So, one thing just as a technical matter, I think that you actually, while you've approved all of the individual subs, I still think you want to approve, letter of recommendation number 6, okay, for WT Rich.
Yes.
Right, just so the total value of that, okay, is $11,823,707.
Yeah.
What are we doing now?
Listed here.
Well,
Letter of recommendation number 6 for.
So all of the ones you just
WT.
approved,
Yeah.
WT.
right, so those are approving all of the awards to all of those subs, right? And just as a contractual matter, what you're gonna end up doing is approving this letter of recommendation, this document.
Yeah.
So it's its own animal.
It's
Right.
actually in a part of Amendment 6, which is broken down by, for the amount for Amendment 6.
Mr. Chairman, if the board should take a vote to approve this and to authorize you to sign it on behalf of the town.
Yes.
Project.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Bob,
Bob, Mary? So we are approving give me that totally one more time, 11 million?
11,823,707.
11 million. Okay, and to authorize my signing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay.
Goes along with the letter of recommendation.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you could, approve this, which is not in your packet, from WT, which if you could give that to Mr. Chairman,
It may not,
and another vote for this.
This is just 4 copies.
how many were in there?
Mr. Chairman, we can have it signed later if we have the authorization, so
Okay.
this is the contract amendment in support of the letter of recommendation.
Okay,
Number
this
6.
this has the figure on it, $11,823,707.
How about that math, huh?
Okay. So we have,
You've approved the letter of recommendation, which requires your signature. Now, this is the actual contract amendment that I didn't have in the packet that you've just received now, which amends the town's contract with WT Rich for the contracts you just approved
okay,
in the total amount.
That's what need to be signed.
If they can take the vote, though, the chairman needs to have the
I'll make a
authorization.
motion to approve that total, 11 million.
the request for contract amendment number 6, file trade bid awards for a total of $11,823,707. Have a motion,
I'll give it a motion.
Second.
second, to authorize me to sign that. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Just a question, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dorr, you mentioned the 3 alternates. Are there any other alternates or just those 3? Those are the only 3?
Those 3, and the kind of the way it shakes out, Dave, is that if you take the first one in the list, right, for $4,860, I think,
Yes, that's it.
right? Then the next 2, actually, just the way it works out, are 0 cost.
Oh, okay.
Right, so it's actually pretty good value, but we think, because we gotta just check the non-trades to make sure that there's, not some extra cost there.
Right.
But
Okay.
it looks like it's pretty good value.
Okay, good. My other
That's on the sheets here.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at all those numbers.
Yeah.
I'm not a numbers person. The other thing is, just a question, are we still on schedule for April vacation and all that, the start?
Yep.
Everything is all set to go? Or will be all set to go if we don't get any more snow?
Yeah, as long as there's, no
Pretty sure we're gonna get snow, though.
funky surprises in April.
Okay, so I have to sign a few documents and,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I will contact James to find out how many, usually it's 4 or 5
Usually it's 4 or
originals
5, yeah.
that we have, you sign, and so,
okay.
let us pull together those so that we have a packet for him.
Can I see you earlier on Thursday before the meeting?
Sure. What time?
20 minutes, half hour early.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was the only one that came in with reading through the columns, but the zeros, except for that 4,800
Right,
on
okay.
the alternate number 2.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I did announce that we did have it open and available. Okay, we have a joint meeting with the water board. We're, excuse me, running just a little bit late. Okay, we have to follow a procedure.
So, Mr. Chairman, the water board will need to call their meeting to order, and then call for a motion to open the joint meeting. And the same with the Board of Selectmen. You are in session now, you'll need to call for a motion and vote to open by roll call and everything, to open the joint meeting. But they need to call their meeting to order first.
They have to call their, okay.
Call the meeting to order? Do we have to vote on it or anything?
So, they call their meeting to order at 7:30, and Chairman Emery will call for a motion to open the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen.
Call for a motion to open the joint meeting. Second. All those in favor signify by a voice vote.
We know what to do. Hi, John Manning.
Hi, Mark Emery.
Hi, Bernie Cullen.
Okay, any motion to have a joint meeting, open the joint meeting with the, for the selectmen?
I'll give you that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. A roll call, voice vote.
Hi, Robert Murray.
Hi, Cliff Pierce.
Aye, Joe Perry.
I got a snow.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
Okay.
All right. Joint meeting. As you can see, we've been working hard at trying to decipher the budget first of all, and then trying to decipher how much all the lines should be. Bernie wrote a nice explanation to it, if you want to read that, Bernie.
Yeah, okay. So I won't read it word for word, but I'll give you the general spirit of what's written here, if that's okay. You should have copies of this in your packets. Okay, so in thinking about the budget, the first thing was obviously we have to estimate what the revenue is. That is always difficult because, and the estimate that we come up with is 2.38 million, which is about 330,000 less than fiscal year 17 actual, but essentially in line with the estimate for fiscal year 18 as it's been annualized up to this point. So we looked at how much money we were actually generating year to date and then annualized it up, and we're more or less on track with that. And that's essentially why we came up with the estimate of 2.38 million. Does that make sense to people? So the water consumption and revenues through the key summer months, because of the drought, remain unpredictable. So we've got to use a rough estimate here. Secondly, the estimate is conservative because there are a lot of things which are really episodic, that are event-driven. So new construction, for example, generates a fairly $4,000 essentially per house for residential service, but we don't know how many there are going to be, and we really have no way of predicting that flow of revenue. It varies too much from the year-to-year basis. And the last point in terms of the revenue is, last year we expected the town to give us pay for $53,400 for the hydrants, and we've reduced that by $14,400.
Thank you for that, too.
Yes.
Well, we start on a good point. So, in general, we're pretty confident with the revenue estimate, but we're acknowledging now that it's on the conservative side because it basically has to be on the conservative side. So we'll be very pleased if people take more showers. We were hit pretty badly by the recent storms because apparently people didn't use any water during that period.
They don't like taking cold showers.
Nobody likes to take hot water heaters. So the next step is the wages and salaries, which are essentially the fiscal year 19 are in line with the fiscal year 18 budget. Is about a 2.7% increase, and that number is significantly higher than the fiscal year 17 actual because we have so many unfilled positions. But the plan is to fill those positions. Those are real positions. They're necessary from a state regulations point of view. So we've been advertising for those positions. So we are trying to fill them. that portion of the budget also includes the salary for the second laborer position, which has already been agreed to. And again, both the first laborer position and the second laborer positions are really part of a long-term planning process, which allows us to kind of bring people along so that we, just like the Chief Broderick mentioned, we need to have experienced people, particularly given, and this is really a contingency plan, because it's been so hard to attract people for the secondary operator positions. So we're doing our best on that front. And again, you guys should chime in if I misstate
No,
anything.
you're doing good so far. I mean, that as we found out over the last few years, and actually Bob Gray and myself went to a seminar from Mass Waterworks on this whole problem of finding qualified licensed operators in the water business, and it's a problem statewide and New England wide. I have friends that runs a water department up in Maine, up near Bangor, Maine, running the same thing. He has to do the same thing that we're doing, because he has to hire people in as laborers and train them.
Oh, wow.
It's because they just, what happens is if you get into a department and they train you and they treat you well and you're a good employee, you want to stay there. And honest with you, with what we have for incentives is not drawing people out of other towns to say, oh wow, Raleigh's looking really great. You know, we're average at best.
Unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So the other item in the wages and salaries is the overtime. In previous years, we estimated, well, I'm not quite sure how it was estimated, but we rebuilt that estimate. And we think it's a much more rigorous and transparent estimate that includes the major buckets. And it includes, as you can see in the detailed sheet, estimates for we're expecting to do hydrant flushing and gate valve exercising, and all that is done at night because on Route 1 and Route 133, Route 1A and Route 133 for obvious reasons. So that is now factored in as a specific item in the budget. The other thing that comes up and is a significant overtime cost is for storms like we've just experienced. And again, we've tried to do a detailed estimate of what that component is and added it in order to get a realistic estimate of and a defensible estimate for overtime.
Just for the example, when the power goes out, we have no telemetry, so we can't run the stations remotely. So either Rob or Bob have to be there, and they have to estimate sometimes they have to even go up to the tank during the storm to find out what the level of the tank is. So we have at least one person, if not more, that have to be on all the time, so that cuts way in, especially if it's on weekends and nights.
But again, what we also discovered as we kind of scrubbed through the previous overtime calculations is there was some kind of double counting that we've eliminated. So that's one of the reasons why that number has dropped from 60,000 estimate to 47,000.
Additionally,
sorry, no, go ahead.
no, just more. There's more of a comment is that Bernie has done taken the lead on putting the budget together, unwinding what was there, but we now have 3 years of data. So it's been, and with Bernie's guidance, I'd say, and the whole board's support and involvement, we've been able to unwind what was there and rebuild it in a much more business-like fashion, and it makes much more sense. And we've been trying to keep the FinCom advised of what we're doing and how we're moving. But as you'll see it and review it, again, we've had 3 years now of data. It's much easier to make extrapolations and do accurate assessments. So
A lot easier, yes. when
yeah,
you have
so
that
we've
history.
cut our teeth and it'll show as you're looking through this stuff.
So on the wages and salary area, we put in a larger number for the superintendent's salary because, and again, this is subject to negotiations and discussions with the personnel board. Again, that position has been advertised and we haven't received any, what I understand, any appropriately qualified candidates up to this point. So again, we have to kind of consider how to get that person in, because I think the board collectively, and I'm sure the Rob and Bob and Kathy and Barry are looking forward to having somebody who's younger and more vigorous than the three old guys who are on here.
Speak for yourself.
And Mark Emery, who is, in all being
chairman.
He's being polite, but he's been doing the lion's share of the work, filling in the absence of a superintendent. And he's here, and he's stepped up, and the whole team has stepped up. But
It's definitely a group effort. Everybody stepped up quite a bit.
It's appropriate to say it, I just want to say that
Yeah.
the operation of the department this year has really been excellent, compared to what we've gone through the last 2 or 3 years between Rob and his guys. I see the guys out in the street, and I talk to them when I see them, and the board does a great job, and
We try to be
I
a
just
more
think it's the whole operation.
consumer-friendly department.
Yeah, the whole operation
What
is,
our goal is.
you call up there and you get a good response from the office people, overall, it's so much better than what it was, so we really thank you, all of you, and Rob, thank your guys for the work they do, and the fact that it's working very, very well at this point, at least from what we see.
Now we gotta find a superintendent to fit into our system.
Right, right. But thank you, John, for pointing, that's
So you allocate an extra $8,000.
very important for us to
Yeah,
be
we took
aware of that.
the new hire at the level 15 position as the kind of the number. But that's just the number, it's just.
Right, just a budgetary.
And one of the things we're looking at is possibly bringing in somebody for 30 hours a week, and then just kind of thinking outside the box a little and
Right.
seeing how that works, and if it brings some relief to the team, and some breathing room for a period of time, and then, take the next step. So
Sure.
Right.
We're not, just keeping blinders on. We're trying
We're trying to figure something out that we can get to
Oh, it
work.
sounds good,
Yeah.
I think the initiative you've taken is excellent.
We just like to get together with the personnel board and discuss this as soon as we can,
Yeah.
so what we have to do to change this.
So, in the former budget, there was this mysterious category called OPEB, which, for the life of me, is an acronym I'd never seen before. But anyway, we understand that it means other personnel, post-retirement benefits. Well, anyway.
The post-employment investment.
Post-employment.
Other,
so-
meaning non-pension,
Right.
other health insurance.
Yeah, it's basically health insurance, and the numbers clearly had been.
No,
based-
not health insurance.
Yeah.
Retirement health insurance.
Retired.
Yeah, for the
Retirement health
retirees.
insurance, other is
Oh,
not,
okay,
so it's
Okay.
non-pension assessment.
okay.
So anyway, previously, either because of confusion over what the category was, or for whatever reason, a placeholder number had been put in there of around 15,000 for at least 3 or 4 years. Come to find out, now that they've done an actuarial assessment of what those actual costs are, that has gone up from 15,000 to 48,000, or basically 49,000 on that line. Now, that probably means we should have been paying more in previous years, but that wasn't the number that we had, so so all the way along, I'm using that as an example, all the way along where we've got a better number, a harder number, a valid number, that's the number we put in, and we don't like it most of the time, because it's higher, but that's the only way to actually
But
run
now
a
you have the
budget.
data to support it.
It's the only way to run a budget.
Yeah, we've gone through the same process. We pick
Yeah.
a number out depending on how much money is available to. It's one of those things that we're never gonna reach the mountain. Literally millions of dollars. That we're never gonna
Yeah, that's
reach,
coming down the pike.
But
So-
we have to account for it.
So on the operating expense area, which is the supplies, services, energy, and administrative costs, we've come in with an estimate which is about $200,000 less than the fiscal year 18 budget, and actually $330,000 less than the fiscal year 17 actual. And most of that comes from a very careful, almost like a zero-based budgeting of all the expense, all those line items. Rob and Bob essentially, because I didn't know diddly squat about it, they went through it and looked at all those numbers, eliminated redundancies, eliminated kind of where money was kind of charged, but there was no real explanation for it. So we built it back up from the baseline, which allowed us to kind of reduce those costs in almost every major category. So you'll see some variations where it's gone up, and that's because it was wrong before. We've just had to re-estimate what those numbers are. And as I say, that most of this credit goes to Rob, who's here, and Bob Gray, who's isn't here. I guess. Big buckets where we reduced engineering and outside services, which in fiscal year 17 were running at around 120,000, to our request for this year for down at 25,000. Now, one of the things that we figured right when we started this exercise was I didn't have enough time, or there wasn't enough documentation to figure out why these numbers were the way they were in the past. We've gone by what the actual billings have been, both in fiscal year 17 and, more importantly, now we're running a tighter ship, fiscal year 18. So those numbers are dramatically lower, but based upon the input from Bob and Rob, these are realistic numbers. So we just haven't kind of tried to snow anybody by just dramatically reducing the costs. Now, one of the other things that we've done, and what we found was in the past, there was a lot of contingencies built into a lot of these different line items. And personally, I don't like, and the board doesn't really feel as though you need to have some when you understand it, but building kind of fat contingencies into each line means that your whole overall budget gets inflated. And you can see that previous budgets have been inflated because the free cash that comes back is I consider it embarrassing because it's so high. So we tried to cut those back where we could, and then we grouped them all under the category that's built into the chart of accounts, which is the extraordinary and unforeseen expenses. And so that's why we've added $25,000 to that line.
I believe that's the line that you guys have to vote on too.
If we pull anything out.
Yeah.
So
If you draw from there, we have to
Yes.
vote on.
Yeah.
So for example, we lost, if you lose a piece of equipment like the compressor, we have a problem with the compressors up at the water treatment plant, that's a big item. Nobody's expecting the compressors to go. We don't have a contingency for that, but it comes into it needs to be covered in the budget.
Can I take advantage of one line in your budget and ask a question? For billing contract services, do you have a glitch this month?
I asked about that. I didn't get an answer back yet.
I didn't either, and I was promised a call.
Did you? Okay.
Nobody responded.
I called Kathy right after I talked to you.
I'm not aware of what the situation is.
But I don't know whether it's townwide or whether I'm just the individual, but I was billed for the gross amount and not the net amount.
In other words, he didn't get his discount.
Oh, on your bill, on your house bill? Oh, okay.
I go online to check.
So,
Well, that's
I
a heads
didn't
up.
have time to get back to Kathy. I've been really busy trying to catch up on my real job.
When did that happen, Joe?
I just checked this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So-
you just saw that?
Yeah.
Just so
I
you
was
know
just running
that
through my,
I have Kathy calling them to check on it.
but I was
And,
disappointed that I called Penachuk and got no. And I spoke to someone, explained the situation. She kind of, at first, didn't know what I was talking about, and then she kind of put it all together that there was a discount and that she would have to go back to somebody to help find out what how that discount ran.
Yeah, they usually want a response on
Yeah, if
But,
they don't.
but I was promised to call, and there was no
if-
response.
If I don't get a response tomorrow, I'll personally call them.
I
would only
just wanna-
qualify that tomorrow might be difficult. 'Cause
Yes.
I know every place that I'm working with, everyone's like, I'll be at home, I'll be at home. So,
Yes.
I'll be at work.
thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important that that information gets back, because we had
Yep.
issues, as you,
It
as some of you know.
has happened before.
Okay.
Then that's a part of their system. We know that they have some issues, glitches with their software, and we really need to kind of make sure that they do due diligence and identify what the root cause of those glitches are. And the last time it happened, I would say there was a glitch, and they didn't know what it was initially, but then they traced it down, and they did, apparently, they have fixed it, as far as I know, so.
I think on the other time, if I recall correctly, when the glitch happened, that they understood what was happening, and that they were taking steps to correct it. But I think I have a feeling I know what happened, but they had no clue, is my response this time around.
Right, yeah, I mean, I think between the board and Kathy, we'll work with them constructively. Previously,
We'll just leave it at that.
Yes, yes, thank you.
we'll get to the root of it. Okay, so the fourth item here is this is one of my learnings as I went through this process. The expenditures and the revenues and the expenditures has to come out to zero in the bottom line. That struck me as being when I saw it the previous year, that struck me as being almost an act of God that it came out at zero. And then, once I dug into it, I realized that what people were doing was that they were kind of moving things, that's the requirement, that's the apparent requirement from the state financial accounting regulations. But in order to get to that zero number, they were moving things around.
You have to play with the estimates, basically.
Play with the,
Yeah.
but that's not good
No.
fiscal management. It's not good management, because then if you increase, for example, if you increase your expenses in a particular line, then the person responsible for that line believes that they've got that amount of money. Well, that's not necessarily the case, and it's certainly not a good practice to encourage. So with Sue Bailey's help, we went through some of the financial guidance that the state offers, and there is in fact a line that says budget surplus. And that line allows you to kind of, it's essentially your surplus. It's your, in the private sector, it's that nasty word called profit. But here, now we've introduced that budgeted surplus line. If we, on a year-over-year basis, we can see that budget surplus is sustainable and predictable, then that's the number that we can use to translate into a reduction in rates.
Right.
And so, but again, we need to be, it needs to be, my view is that it needs to be sustainable, and I think this is from the discussions with the board, we need to think of it in terms of, if we change a rate, that rate has to be supportable for 3 years. We don't want to get in a process of whipsawing.
Up and down every
No,
year. The
no.
sawtooth thing isn't
Exactly.
gonna cut it.
Exactly. My analogy is that if you know what the answer is, then you work backwards and you know, try to fit everything in, and if this doesn't help you along the way, you just toss it out, and
Right, so
it's a
we've got.
lousy way to budget.
Yes.
Municipal budget.
Yeah.
School budgets, didn't say it.
But with that, and with the rates and everyone, when I joined the whole thing, they just passed the $20. My colleagues weren't part of the board, and I joined when that $20 disaster had been put in. We got rid of that, and then, worked hard to bring some sanity to the process. And I think as a board, this board has, and that going forward, we've held the rates for 3 years. We've got a rate study. When we're done with this, we'll be having kind of taking your thunder here, Mark, but
Yep, go ahead.
we'll be having a public hearing with the rate study that was done, we just kind of put it on hold until we get through the budget season. And then we're gonna look and make some evaluations, and, you know, the feeling is we're either gonna hold steady or try to, you know, carve off a little, so. but
Well, you guys have
certainly
come a long way.
it's increases.
Wow.
I'll be honest
Yeah.
with you, I haven't even looked at the rate study yet, because I
Wow.
wanted to get through the budget season before I even dealt with that.
Right, one of the
Yeah.
issues that we had with the rate study was that what's the name of the engineering firm? Tater and Howard. They had taken their guidance from the last superintendent, and that included activities which essentially led to a really large expenditure of funds to replace mains, etc. And that so we took the good part of the rate study and we've kind of nixed a whole lot of it because it simply wasn't responsive. And so anyway, so
We did
Take some-
whole
take some-
analysis of the whole system and what's in the ground for pipes, and what should be replaced and what shouldn't be replaced. And after looking at it, we voted to put any main replacement, even though we have schedules to be done, we pushed it forward for 3 years. You didn't wanna, you know, go into debt more and have to charge more for water than we already are.
and the reality is we don't have the staff to kind of run it.
And
in a
our system
coherent
is
way.
relatively new for the most part, and we don't have an overabundance of water breaks. If we find there's an area where all of a sudden we're getting a lot of water breaks, that obviously we'll be taking care of that.
From a cost, we did a cost benefit, I mean, business 101, cost benefit, and really, the cost just didn't justify taking the action at this time, and so we unanimously just pushed it out for, not kicking down the can down the road, but a conscious business decision. that
Yeah.
We don't need to do this right now.
We didn't wanna get into more debt if we didn't have to.
Exactly.
So we acted as a board.
But you have to
But
be
we're talking millions of dollars more debt.
Yep.
So, just as the example mentioned earlier on the wages and salary line about the post-employment benefits, we hit the same thing with the shared overhead estimates, and you must have seen this in the other budgets that have been presented, both the retirement and the healthcare costs that they've done they've redone studies. They're using, and that has added significantly to to that overhead line. So that's 50% increase essentially on that one line, which the actual numbers for fiscal year 19 when they come in may be lower because some of these numbers are driven by census, the census of employees. If we don't fill those slots, then that cost will be lower.
But our goal is to fill them shortly.
Yes, absolutely. So the last item is the capital expenses. There's no capital expense line in the proposed budget. These will be requested from articles. Our expectation is that the funds will be available because we've made some decisions not to pursue projects which were previously voted on, which was the primary one was the dehumidification equipment for the water treatment plant, which with the help of Rob and Bob, we figured out wasn't needed. Regardless, there was confused signals, but when we actually went back and looked carefully at the system and at the conditions under which there was a real safety issue, that was manageable, essentially by closing doors. Comes down to that. And
Turning
shutting off a
ventilation
fan,
system off.
shutting off ventilation
This
systems.
was introducing released water to the
Moist air.
moist air, I should say, to the cold pipes, which was causing the problem. That got shut off and it reduced greatly. So what we're going to do as part of our projects is to insulate the pipes as opposed to put in that basically almost a $500,000 project. And so, and that freed up a lot of money, so all of our capital expenses this year will be transferred out of that fund in, the article and into purchasing truck, purchasing the insulation for the pipes, because we couldn't do that with that article because it was specific to what it was, so. We're looking to get a plow for the backhoe because of the long dirt roads. Sometimes it's easier just to get the backhoe down there than just trying to get a truck down there. And doing a backhoe with just with a bucket, just all it does is just causes more problems than a plow, so. I think it's gonna be money well spent to do that.
Well, the biggest thing, capital project, is the reconditioning of wells 3 and 5.
That's probably the most important one of all of them.
So it's getting harder and harder to pump that water, and it's time to recondition them.
I just want to add one more thing, going back to the dehumidification, is that this board decided that we needed to look at that instead of just plowing ahead and get some more information. And by just doing our due diligence and doing it twice, we really were able to kind of figure out what we really needed to do and get to the bottom of it, and it's paying off.
And again, that's with the input of Rob, because they have to live in those conditions, and if they had said that they're unsafe or they're problematic, then we would have proceeded. But come to find out, when you talk to these guys, they shoot straight, and we got the skinny, and we responded accordingly. So a lot of credit goes to Rob and Bob in terms of us being able to put together a budget.
It just sounds like it's 100% team effort.
Yeah.
Yep.
And everybody's getting.
We work as a board.
Everybody's listening to
Everybody's
everybody
on the
else and
same
coming up
page.
with common sense solutions. And I mean, I've been sitting here for the last 6 or 7 years in a row, going through water budgets, which never having any idea, just numbers are reeling out. And I'm not criticizing anybody per se, but it was just torture. And I think if you put this together, Bernie, this 2 pages, page and a half, I think the explanation is really good, because, you know, there's all kinds of numbers.
I got this morning and I said, wow, that's
categories
great, awesome job.
I mean, this is something that you could show anybody, and with a little bit of explanation, if even then, you understand what the budget is, where it's going, what it's doing, and it's really a valuable piece of information for us to use.
One of the other articles we have is add money to our HVAC, where we went out to bid. We found out that we had only about half the amount of money that we needed to actually do the project. So we immediately put window units back for the air conditioning, so our employees could be
This is a
working at
401
Central Street, so they could have something cooler to work in. And as you noticed, anybody that watched our meetings, our meeting room had no climate control at all.
Yeah.
All year, and we run on some baseboard heats, and they got space heaters, and so we're proposing to add to that budget to put in an adequate HVAC system. And I think that when they gave the prices, they weren't thinking of the size of the windows and the less amount of insulation we have in those huge windows that came with the building.
Right.
So it brought the price of the system up to compensate for that, both cooling and heating. So,
Looks good.
and the truck we're replacing is a 9, almost 10-year-old truck, and it's a 10-year plan to replace trucks, especially with the salt and stuff they put on the road these days. The frames rot out on us, just like.
One final question for me is, how is our infamous Prospect Hill Road doing with the weather? You guys go up and down there, I assume, on a regular basis. Is it hanging in?
Doing very well.
Yeah, I was
Very
up
well?
there.
It looks good when I drive by, but that doesn't mean,
I was up there last week with Mark Bixby, actually,
okay,
checking on a couple things, and
everything,
it
the
was
road
it
is
was good.
holding
There's a
and the
tree across
drainage is
it.
working.
There's a tree across it
I saw
right
the tree
now
across it, yeah.
that needs to be moved, but
Other than that, that's good.
yeah.
It's
It's gonna need some grading every so often,
Right.
and I'm sure come spring, once we get everything done, we'll need to do some smoothing it to maintain, to keep it in good condition, but it's held up very well.
Good.
We're not gonna ignore it for 10 years.
No, as long as we keep
No.
up with it, and,
Yeah.
you know, whatever needs to be done, it definitely, Yeah, it was a mess, no doubt about it. And the weather didn't help us either while the construction was going on and all the other harassment we got for it, so.
Yep, and now that we've redirected the overflow, so
Right.
it doesn't affect the road at all.
Right.
It goes off to an area, we worked with Brent to decide where there was an area that wasn't gonna impact anything if it overflows, because it's a fact.
Yeah.
It's gonna overflow. Things happen.
Oh, yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
for
especially,
sure.
especially when the power was out, you could do it easily because you don't have the telemetry to do that.
Does that road get plowed in the winter, in the snow? No, you know, it just melts and, or you got a vehicle, four-wheel
That's,
drive, they can get up there for.
That's another issue that we're gonna be coming up with probably in the next town meeting.
Okay.
Is, Newbury Police has what they call an Argo.
Okay,
It's a tracked vehicle, it's a six-wheel, and they put tracks on it. I've been offered use of it anytime we need to get up the hill for an emergency.
okay.
I just have to call Deputy Lucy, the Newbury PD, and he'll bring it over. I had him come over, was it about 3 or 4 weeks ago when there was ice on the hill? And I actually got videos if anybody wants to watch, but it went right up the hill, right over the ice. So that's our backup plan right now, and eventually we've been so busy in the last couple of weeks that I haven't had a chance to do any pricing or talk to any dealers or anything, but that's the plan, and I've been talking with Chief Broderick about possibly obtaining it through emergency management, that way emergency management would have the control of it, and whatever department needed it could use it. You'd have to have certain drivers that could drive it. That was one thing Deputy Lucy said, is that make sure you have people that are proficient in driving it, not just everybody drives it up the hill.
Could we lease it out to National Grid if they needed it to check the
They
power?
probably could use it. But that's
As long as it had pontoons on it.
that's an option we're looking at.
Okay, good.
And,
Oh,
you know, if it works out like I hope it will, it'll be an asset to the town in all different ways, you know, where you can get out in the woods. Right now, somebody's hurt out in the woods, it's hard to get out there to get to them and stuff, so.
Okay, no,
Yeah, that's good.
did a great job with the budget, I really, you know, like I said, I'm very pleased with the way it's presented.
Excellent.
The work, obviously a lot of work and a lot of time by everybody was put in, and I commend
Have to thank Bernie.
Rob and Bob,
and
and,
they did an awesome job.
yeah, really, I mean,
I mean,
it's,
So the intent is, and I was, at one point, I was pretty confident that we were moving in the right direction to have some appreciable reduction in rates, and then these overhead costs and other costs came in, and it took that away. But the intent is still to kind of move forward with that at the back of our mind. So, the 3 years ago, or just as I joined the board, I found a study that basically documented or compared our rates to every other town in Massachusetts rates, and it was embarrassing because we had the most expensive water. And Rob received an updated version of that study, and we have not, unfortunately, lost our #1 position.
Really?
And so we are still the most expensive water in Massachusetts. So
full.
and not by a little bit. We have a very big lead on the next team. So at least me personally, it's a personal challenge to kind of address that issue. And you all see your water bills, you all know that they are substantial. And we're intent on trying to find ways to reduce it. But we have to live with what we've got.
the plant really,
Yeah, I mean,
really,
a lot of the budget is fixed costs.
Yeah.
And
Until
it's
the
debt.
plant gets
That's
paid
my
off.
whole point of, I don't wanna get in any more debt
No.
if we don't have to.
When
but
is
it's
that plant paid off? Is that a 20-year, 30?
It's a 20-year note, so it's 2033. On the sheet on the debt, on the last column, it lists the
17 years.
date.
Okay. Still a lot
It's
of
the
time.
last.
We do have a couple of things coming up in the next couple of years, the building at 401, but it's nothing compared to what we're paying for,
The plant is the big,
yeah.
the
I
big.
mean, I even inquired as to if we could pay those debts off early to help the rates.
Right.
And I was told that we cannot do that
Yeah, okay.
for the town treasurer, so.
All right.
And the last thing I'll just say is, I just turned in my nomination papers as I walked in tonight for another term.
Oh, good, congratulations. Very good.
And I think I'm running unopposed.
Yeah, I think
I've been
most,
watching this.
most positions are unopposed.
Thank you, Joe.
People should be stepping up.
Every position
I
is.
saw on your
What-
agenda tonight that there's a lot of positions unfilled. So
Yeah, we're trying to
if
do
anybody's
it.
watching this, get involved.
Exactly.
Thank you,
Exactly.
John.
All right, no, thank you very
Any
much
other
for coming in,
questions?
and, no, I think I'm good.
Have a motion?
I give you a motion to approve the water budget as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the water budget. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we have to have a roll call to end the joint meeting.
So they would wanna take a motion to close the joint meeting and what place?
Can I just ask, do we want to talk about weather for tomorrow? We're gonna have a meeting, just while we can officially talk.
If town offices are closed, we will not have a meeting tomorrow night.
Is that what that'll?
That's how it usually works, right?
No,
What do we want to just have
we can
it
set up a
anyways?
meeting, and the weather can get better during the day.
Yeah.
I'll
So I
get
mean,
4 to 5, so I'm not sure if you want to do it or not.
there's been no decision made.
Okay.
Well, I mean, part of the issue is with the FinCom and what the agenda, what their agenda is like. Because sooner or later, we have to go to.
Are they coming to our meeting tomorrow?
No, we're going, we're having a meeting, then adjourning, then we're coming to their meeting. So I believe, what time is it, Larry? We're coming to yours?
I forget what the time is.
So they cancel, we should.
It's 7:45. Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it's probably gonna be fine, the roads will be plowed.
So, we'll leave it up to the finance committee. If they cancel their meeting, we'll cancel ours. How's that sound?
Yeah, no, it's just, we can officially have this conversation
Yeah.
without someone saying.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of work to
Yeah.
be done, and,
Mhm.
you know, the weather should, you know, the situation should be evading by the time.
I have no problem getting around town.
7:00.
Unless Larry wants to give us the okay here and now, and
Unfortunately, no.
All right, we're all set
I'll
then?
make a motion to adjourn the water board meeting.
seconded.
All those in favor?
Hi, John.
Aye.
Manning.
Hi, Mark Emery.
Hi, Bernie Cullen.
Motion to close the
Give me a
joint
motion.
meeting.
Give me a motion to close the joint meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Cliff Pierce.
Aye, Joe Perry.
Hi, Robert Snow.
Hi, Dave Peterson. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
gentlemen.
Rob. Thank you for
Thank you
coming in.
very much.
Thank you
Good
very
job.
much. You guys did a
Thank you,
great
Rob.
job.
Good
there.
job.
You really did a good job compared to what we had other years.
Well, like you
You
said,
made a
it was
real
team
effort.
effort.
Yeah, you made a real effort.
Good job. Bernie, good,
Excellent work there.
Yes.
really good job.
It was much easier than the pain I suffered last year, I can
Well,
tell
next
you.
year will be even a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting in it.
Okay, let's go to next item on the agenda, the fiscal year 19 budgets. First on the list is Selectmen.
So, Mr. Chairman, this follows the guidelines to appoint. Certainly your stipends, that's up to you to discuss. The salaries that are listed here are all within the guidelines. The stipends remain flat with the exception of the records access officer stipend based on the discussion last week with the town clerk who you've appointed to that position under the public records law. There was an increase of $1,000 to that stipend. The expenses are level funded. The reverse 911 communication system, which we purchased off the General Services Administration contract. I have reached out to Blackboard Connect to make sure that that's still a valid number. They haven't got back to me to say otherwise, so I did insert the same number as last year. We level funded the copier, the audit, the sealer of weights and measures. We do not need a collective bargaining reserve in fiscal 19. I level funded Pine Grove school property expense. Stormwater compliance, you have to consultation with French on that. Well, the EPA is making cities and towns at this point do a lot of planning on that. There's no infrastructure upgrades, but we may be needing to get some technical assistance on that, so that's level funded. The new line is that landfill test well monitoring, and as I informed you on that, we do have money in an article, but landfill test well monitoring is a recurring expense, and really, it's an obligation of the town. It should be in the budget line. And we had to expand what we were testing for, and so the company that's been doing the testing actually revised that. They hadn't included certain other components in the testing in their original price, so they said that this needs to be included. So I've budgeted $20,000 for that. It should be just under 18, but in case there's any retesting or anything that needs to be done, I will file a report with the DEP on that in the following spring. And
Debbie, just a quick question, is that forever?
yes, until the DEP says otherwise.
Okay, thank you.
And then the website, social media archiving, Chief Dumas, when he presented his budget a couple weeks ago, requested funds for this for the police department Facebook page. As you know, any social media, anything you do in your capacity, you send emails out on town business in your capacity to anyone, you have to be archiving those if they're not being run through the office. Anything you post on a social media website off-site, you need to do your own archiving on that. But if the town has Facebook pages, such as the police department Facebook page, they need to be archiving that. And so we looked at the company he had suggested, and they have contracts in Peabody and Gloucester and a few other municipalities. This was what we came up with. Karen contacted them in order to cover not just the police, but the library and the Council on Aging and the fire department have expressed interest in having Facebook pages. This would cover that archiving cost. In your packet, I put the material from the website, and you can certainly peruse through that website.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there can be public records requests relating to social media, and this will provide a way to do that. So that was added in, based on the discussions from the selectmen on that.
Any comments or anything on the,
No, I'll give you, unless there's some
Budget?
discussion, I'll give you a motion to approve the selectmen's department budget as submitted.
I'll second.
motion has been made and seconded to approve the Selectmen Department budget for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And next, we have the town accountant.
Mr. Chairman, on this budget, the wages are falling in line with the guidelines. And the reason why you see a little bit of a dip in the wage line for the assistant, we have vacancy there, so it doesn't, always come on exactly. And she's requesting to increase her expense line by $500 every year. She runs short because of the annual software licensing, and she has to wait until May or June to try to get a transfer to offset that. The true cost is, this is a fixed cost that increase, and we really keep saying we have to level fund every year, but it's becoming difficult to do that. She also attends professional development, and she often doesn't have the money to do that, and has to wait for a transfer in May. And usually it comes out of the assistant town accountant line, because we've had so many vacancies, she's been able to dip into that to cover those costs. So it's not entirely within the guidelines.
Oh, but I think we've always said that if you have a specific costs that are beyond the guidelines, obviously give them to us. You can't run on level funds forever.
Right.
And more, especially software costs, and, a simple thing like postage is enough to knock it off, so I'll move we approve for the town accountant budget as presented.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the town accountant's budget for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is the cemetery budget.
exactly what to do with this. We did send this out a week ago, then I caught a mistake in the wage rate that I fixed yesterday. I resent it out, but I hadn't received any response from the cemetery board at all until Ms. Olmsted got back to me and said that she was fine. But I don't know what I should be doing. So I just put it in the packet.
Yeah, I give the motion to approve the cemetery as presented.
Second.
Based upon Ms. Olmsted's approval.
Right, yeah.
Motion has been made and seconded based on Ms. Olmsted's approval for the cemetery budget for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next is the Finance Committee.
No, the
No?
finance committee hasn't approved their budget yet, so that was a mistake, actually.
Okay. And we have the Personnel Advisory Committee.
Give you a motion to approve as submitted, no increase.
No increase. Second. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the Personnel Advisory Committee. All those, for fiscal year 19, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have the Agricultural Commission.
Give you a motion as submitted, no increase.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the Agricultural Commission for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we have the Historical Commission and Historic District Commission.
They don't want anything? That's it. Debbie, that's zero, is that correct?
Oh, I think she made a mistake.
No, she didn't.
It's just level funding.
Why couldn't this be a $50,000 budget that's going to zero?
I mean, I can go back to her, but I would just say let's level fund it. I did say to her, are you level funding? Because she's the only
Right.
town line that has less than $100. She has $70, and I don't know how she survives on that.
Yeah.
So,
At $332, like not, usually things are rounded up.
so we'll do it at 402?
We'll do it at level funded
Well,
with
level funded, and
332,
I'll get back
70.
to her.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we approve a level funded.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the level funded for the Historic Commission, Historic District Commission for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And last but not least, we'll do streetlights.
I'll make a motion, we approve the fiscal 19 request at 34,000. They usually give it back to us anyway, but that's fine.
Second.
Well, what you're seeing, Dave, is that it's going down because department's adding LED lights.
LED lights, so.
Yeah.
So as that goes down from year to year, you're gonna see less and less being transferred.
Right. And while we're on this budget, I just, the board and the light people, I just want to commend, I see the light guys all the time. Your department and the board does a wonderful job of running our electric department. And one of the things I've commented on the last couple of days when I'm at the coffee shop is the fact that, you know, with all the problems we're having with National Grid, when you look around at the Raleigh Light Department, they're constantly, our rates are low, number one. And number two is they're constantly putting up new poles, replacing poles with bigger, taller ones and more rugged-looking poles. And if you go up to Newbury as an example and look at what National Grid has along Route 1 and 1A, all those poles are 40, they're gonna be at least 40 years or more old. They're waiting to fall down. So our light department really does, the people do an excellent job and the board does an excellent job, and I think we should be proud of. I mean, all these outages on social media, a lot of questions, and it really is, it had nothing to do with our guys, your guys, went around and corrected, you know, trees on our lines and hooked, I'm sure there were, you know, lines around that might have been knocked over, but the whole problem was caused by the National Grid feed lines into Raleigh. It wasn't our light department. And the 40-odd years I've been in town, I think those were the two longest outages I've ever seen. Usually if we get an outage, it's an hour because some car hit a pole or a tree fell down or something, but guys do a great job. I just, commend them for what they do.
Well, I think a lot of things has to
Service they
do
give
with,
us.
we've been very good at the tree trimming. And the
Yeah,
town
they're
is-
very much up on.
Very good.
And like I
Yes.
said earlier, I've talked to Dan Folding about, working with us on
Mm-hmm.
trimming trees come after we appropriate our money, hopefully at town meeting, so we can get some of the potential trees down before they cause more problems, but it really is, we're very proud of the way this town.
I mean, the outages
responds.
were on the right of ways.
Yeah.
Coming in, the
Yeah, it was in the
feeder
woods, out
lines
in the
coming
woods.
in.
The first one was out in the swamp, they couldn't get to
And
it
then the
that
other
first
one was
day.
over at King Street.
Yeah, everything coming out of there, so it really, it was National Grid's responsibilities, and our guys were right there when the power came back on, so just a commendation for everybody involved.
Yeah, truly, the Raleigh Light Department stands out in the whole area.
Of course.
And it's, people talk about it.
Of
And that
course.
it's a very good, well-run department, and you take advantage of the situation, that you're out there working to trim the trees, and you're avoiding the problems that other areas have. It's just been a very big positive for our town to have that department work that well run.
Poles, guying, and tree trimming.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
makes a
That's what
difference.
it-
I know
Well, it's
exactly how
a
it
maintenance,
works.
scheduled
Yeah.
maintenance makes a big
19
difference.
19 years.
19 years.
And the rates are lower than National Grid,
Yeah.
so we're very happy with the way things go, so.
We are.
Did we make a motion to approve that 34?
Yes, we did.
And seconded.
Okay,
Do you take the
Did
final
we- did we
vote?
vote?
You haven't taken the final vote yet.
You
We
just-
gotta vote.
There's a motion on the table.
motion on the table to approve the electric street lighting for fiscal
lighting.
year, budget for fiscal year 19. All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain.
Abstain.
Okay, moving on to new business number 1. Discuss adopting meals and hotel tax. The town has an opportunity to raise revenue through an optional meals and hotel tax. Several surrounding municipalities have done this. And it is definitely true. I see it more and more on my bill when I pay my restaurant tab, that towns are adopting this, and I think we should.
I think we should too.
Yeah, I was on the board back at the time when this first came down, and we basically voted against it at
Yeah.
that time because we did not want to be the only town that had increased the meal tax, but I think just about everybody around, other than Newbury, Newbury doesn't really have much for
Right.
motels and restaurants. I think we should definitely put an article on,
Yeah.
So
on the
this
town
is
meeting warrant to adopt this. It's, what, 3/4%?
3/4%.
Three
So-
quarters.
You go to Georgetown or any place else, you don't notice it. And it's
No.
just, actually, it ends up being, the treasurer gave us the numbers here.
Georgetown made $70,000.
Yeah, it's a substantial amount of money, and,
Yeah.
with the school budgets going up and all the other costs going up, we need to
Yeah.
do whatever we can to.
No, what about the hotel tax? I don't see a rate for that. Do we know what that is?
There was I think there was local rooms tax, which is in the back 3 or 4 pages of, I don't know what the rate is, but if we're gonna have that that upscale
Right.
motel, I think we should take advantage. I'm not sure what the rate is, but we'll check on it, and I think we should
Yeah.
include that also.
But is it one, is there a range of rates you can choose up to a certain amount, or is it just one?
It's fixed, I believe.
fixed.
It's similar to the meals one.
Yeah, it's probably
I just don't have that
1%
in
or
the
something
packet.
like that.
Well, I think we should do both.
Yeah, I do too, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
Agree.
get that to you.
Well, we'll adopt it doing it both, and then,
Have a motion?
I'll make a motion to impose I gotta get the right terminology, a local option meals tax and what was the other one?
room, lodging,
Lodging.
Room and lodging tax.
hotel tax.
I'll second.
So we're setting up to put an article on the town meeting
Right.
for the
2 articles.
2 articles. Right?
Yep.
Okay. You have a comment?
Yes, the estimate, this, from the treasurer, that came from where? 70,000. 70,000.
No, she has the estimates from all the surrounding, not the estimates, the actual revenues
These are revenues from the
surrounding
surrounding towns.
State figures, I guess.
from the state, yeah, because the tax is collected by the state and then reimbursed to us.
It was 2017.
Oop.
2017, and for which, I don't need to drag this out, it's been here a long time, but which towns?
No,
There's a whole
You
list.
said- Somebody said 70,000. so-
no, we're saying Georgetown.
Georgetown.
Georgetown was actually 78,000 for FY17.
For restaurants.
And that's just for restaurants, not for
They have
hotels.
the golf course up on the top of the hill.
Yeah,
there.
right, but we got
That was big money up there.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we may not get that,
I would think we could do at least as well as
well,
that.
we, between the tavern and the Agawam Diner
there's a lot of-
and the,
On the
you got
Vine.
some ads, you got off the vine, yeah, we got a lot of, there's a lot of restaurants, or sandwich shops, et cetera, so it's, I think we could probably pretty near do that anyway.
Beat it, probably.
The meal, hotel taxes would only be that one new, but that's gonna be an upscale hotel anyway, a motel there, so it's,
Okay. Call for a vote on the motion has been made and seconded to put an article in the town meeting warrant to adopt a meals and hotel tax, two separate. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Okay, we have announcements. The Friends of the Council on Aging is sponsoring a shoe drive during the month of April at the Town Hall Annex, 39 Central Street. Paired footwear such as the following may be deposited in the container at the Annex parking lot. Shoes, boots, work boots, sandals, slippers, flip-flops, heels, sneakers, pocketbooks, purses, backpacks, belts, and belts. Information on the Pine Grove School Project is available on the town's website at www.townofraleigh.net. Town meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 30th, 2018, at 7 p.m. in the Pine Grove School Gymnasium. Please note that change. It is not in the all-purpose room, it is in the Pine Grove School Gymnasium. The treasurer-collector announces that the motor vehicle excise tax bill were mailed on February 2nd, 2018. The town has the following vacancies: fence viewer, 3 positions; wood, lumber, and bark inspector; zoning board of appeals associate, 3 seats; parks and recreation committee, 1 seat; and deputy shellfish constable, 2 positions. For more information on these positions, please contact the Selectman's office at 948-2372. The Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. Donations can be left at the Raleigh Public Library. The food pantry is open on Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Need a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
second.
We have a motion to adjourn. It has been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.